What if the moment they smiled at you was the moment they decided you were useful? Think about that for a second. Not the moment they fell for you. Not the moment they saw something beautiful in you. But the moment they calculated that you could give them something they needed. You thought you found love. But what if you were never found? What if you were hunted? Most people never ask that question. Because it's painful. Because it forces you to look back at some of your warmest memories and ask, was any of it real? Here's the truth that Machiavelli understood centuries ago, and that most people are never taught: some people do not enter relationships to connect. They enter relationships to conquer. And the most dangerous part? They are incredibly good at making it feel like love. A spider's web doesn't look like a trap. It catches the light. It looks almost beautiful. You don't realize what it is until you're already stuck. That's exactly what this kind of relationship feels like. And if something in you just shifted, if something in your chest just tightened, keep watching. Because what you're about to hear may be the most important thing you've ever learned about the people in your life. Before we go any further, if you've ever felt this, if you've ever looked back at a relationship and thought, something was off, but I couldn't explain it, this channel exists for you. Most people go their entire lives never understanding what was done to them. They just carry the weight of it. They blame themselves. They wonder what they did wrong. They think they were too much, or not enough. But the ones who figure it out, the ones who finally see it clearly, they all have one thing in common. They found the right information at the right time. That's what this channel is built for. So if you haven't already, subscribe. Turn on notifications. Not for us. Do it for yourself. Because the videos on this channel are not entertainment. They are education. They are armor. And in a world full of people who study how to use you, the least you can do is study back. Now, let's go deeper. Here is what nobody tells you about Machiavellian people. They don't walk into your life looking like a threat. They walk in looking like an answer. They seem to understand you instantly. They laugh at the same things you laugh at. They care about the same things you care about. They've been through pain that mirrors your pain. It feels faded. It feels rare. It feels like, finally, someone who gets me. But here is the cold reality. That feeling was engineered. There is a psychological technique called mirroring. And when a Machiavellian uses it on you, it is one of the most powerful and dangerous tools in the human playbook. What they do is simple and devastating. They study you. They listen, not because they care, but because they are gathering data. They learn what you value. What you've been through. What kind of love you've always wanted but never fully received. And then, they become that. They reflect it all back to you like a perfect mirror. And here's the terrifying part, you don't fall in love with them. You fall in love with yourself, with your own reflection, your own deepest needs, dressed up in another person's face. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that appearances matter more than reality to anyone who wants power. He understood that if you seem to be what someone needs, loyal, loving, safe, you don't actually have to be those things. You just have to maintain the performance long enough to get what you want. Think about the beginning of that relationship. How quickly it felt deep. How fast the connection seemed to grow. How natural everything felt. You probably told yourself it was chemistry. You probably told yourself this person was different. But what if it wasn't chemistry? What if it was craft? The illusion of an organic, fated connection is the first and most important layer of the trap. Because once you believe the connection is real, once you've emotionally invested, everything that comes after is so much easier for them to control. Let's talk about something that might be uncomfortable to hear. You were not chosen randomly. A Machiavellian person does not walk through the world blindly bumping into people and deciding on a whim to manipulate them. They profile. They assess. They look for very specific qualities. And the cruelest irony of all is this: the qualities they look for are not weaknesses. They are strengths. Your best qualities are exactly what made you a target. Think about a locksmith. A locksmith doesn't try random keys on a lock and hope for the best. They study the lock first. They understand its mechanism. They figure out exactly how it opens. And then they use that knowledge, not to protect the lock, but to get inside it. That is exactly what a Machiavellian does with people. So what do they look for? First, empathy. Highly empathetic people are the warmest targets. Why? Because an empathetic person will naturally fill in the gaps. When the story doesn't quite add up, an empathetic person will give the benefit of the doubt. When the behavior is hurtful, an empathetic person will look for an explanation that makes it forgivable. Empathy, one of the most beautiful human qualities, becomes the open door. Second, ambition and high standards. This might surprise you. But Machiavellian people are often drawn to high-value targets. People who have something to offer: social status, resources, a strong network, a good reputation. Being chosen by someone like you makes them look better. It serves their image. It advances their position. You weren't just emotionally valuable. You were strategically valuable. Third, loneliness, or a gap in the heart. This doesn't mean weak. Everyone carries some form of longing. A desire to be truly seen. A wound from childhood. A pattern of relationships that never quite worked. A Machiavellian finds that gap and presses themselves into it like a key into a lock. Psychological research on what's known as the dark triad, Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy, consistently shows that people high in these traits are skilled at reading social environments and identifying who can be most effectively influenced. This is not accidental. It is calculated. And knowing this should not make you feel ashamed. It should make you feel clear. Now we get to the part that might shake you the most, because when you look back, and you will look back, you will see it. You will see that the signs were there from the very beginning. You just didn't know what you were looking at. Let's walk through them. And as we do, notice if any of this sounds familiar. They knew too much, too soon. In the early weeks, they seemed to understand you at a level that should have taken years to reach. They said the right thing at the right moment. They understood your pain without you fully explaining it. It felt like magic. It wasn't. It was observation. It was calculated listening designed to make you feel profoundly seen. They moved fast. Unnaturally fast. The relationship escalated quickly, deep conversations within days. Declarations of connection within weeks. Talks of the future before you'd even finished getting to know each other. Most people interpret this as passion. It is not passion. It is investment manufacturing. The faster they can get you emotionally invested, the harder it becomes for you to walk away. Isolation dressed as devotion. Maybe they said things like, "I just want you all to myself." Or maybe it was subtler, quiet comments that created distance between you and your friends. Small suggestions that the people in your life didn't fully appreciate you. Over time, without you noticing, the circle around you got smaller. And as your world shrank, their influence grew. future faking, grand promises, vivid pictures of what your life together would look like, vacations you'd take, the home you'd build, the life you'd share. These visions were painted early, and they were painted in bright, beautiful colors. But they weren't plans. They were hooks, designed to keep you looking forward, so you wouldn't look at what was happening right now. The early test. Here is one that almost nobody catches in the moment. Early in the relationship, quietly, almost innocuously, they crossed a small line. Maybe they said something slightly disrespectful. Maybe they pushed back on a boundary in a minor way and watched to see how you responded. If you let it go, they noted it. It wasn't an accident. It was a test. They were measuring your tolerance, figuring out how far they could go. Think of it like a courtroom. All of this evidence was always there. But you didn't know you were in a trial. There comes a moment, and if you've lived this, you know exactly what moment I'm talking about, where something small happens. Something that doesn't quite fit. A story that changes slightly in the retelling. A reaction that seems completely out of proportion. A look in their eyes that feels like a stranger looking back at you. You pull one thread, and the whole thing starts to unravel. This is the glitch in the matrix moment. And it is one of the most disorienting experiences a human being can go through. Because everything that came before, every warm memory, every deep conversation, every moment that felt real, is suddenly sitting under a question mark. But here is what makes this moment so dangerous. They are ready for it. Because a skilled Machiavellian does not just build the trap. They build maintenance systems for the trap. And the most powerful of those systems is called gaslighting. When you bring up the inconsistency, when you say something doesn't feel right, they don't explain. They redirect. They question your perception. You're too sensitive. You're reading into things. I can't believe you would even think that about me. Suddenly, you're defending your own instincts. Suddenly, you're the problem. And because you've been emotionally invested for so long, because you want to believe in the version of them you fell for, you start to wonder. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm the one who doesn't see clearly. That doubt, that is the trap reinforcing itself. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." That line was written over 500 years ago. And it describes exactly what happens in the moment the mask slips. You were one of the few who finally got a glimpse of what they really are. And they will do everything in their power to make you forget what you saw. Don't forget what you saw. Here is where we need to pause and reframe everything. Because Machiavelli is often misunderstood. His name has become shorthand for cold, ruthless manipulation. But that is not what his work was truly about. Machiavelli was an observer. A ruthlessly honest one. He looked at the world, not as people wished it were, but as it actually was. And he wrote it down. The Prince was not a manual for monsters. It was a warning for the rest of us. The danger was never in reading Machiavelli. The danger was in being naive enough to believe that no one else had. Think about how con artists are studied. Law enforcement agencies train people to understand the psychology of fraud, not to create more con artists, but to make investigators harder to deceive. Doctors study how diseases attack the body, not to help diseases spread, but to stop them. Understanding how something works does not make you that thing. It makes you resistant to it. This is what Machiavellian psychology, studied honestly and clearly, gives you. Not cynicism. Not paranoia. but strategic awareness. A form of emotional intelligence that most people never develop because nobody ever taught them it was necessary. Machiavelli understood one of the deepest truths of human nature, that in every relationship, there is a balance of power. And in any relationship where one person is fully aware of that truth and the other is completely blind to it, the outcome is almost predetermined. The goal is not to become Machiavellian. The goal is to stop being surprised. So where do you go from here? Because understanding the trap is one thing. Living after it, rebuilding after it, that is something else entirely. Let's talk about that. Step 1, validate your reality. What happened to you was real. The confusion you felt, real. The pain, real. The love you gave, that was real too, even if theirs wasn't. One of the cruelest side effects of this kind of relationship is that it makes you doubt your own experience. Start by refusing to do that. Say it clearly to yourself, I was manipulated. That is not a reflection of my stupidity. It is a reflection of their skill. Step 2, audit the pattern, without destroying yourself. Look back not to punish yourself, but to understand yourself. What gap were they filling? What need were they answering? This is not victim blaming. This is self-knowledge. Knowing what made you a warm target is the beginning of protecting that part of yourself, not by shutting it down, but by becoming more intentional about who gets access to it. Step 3, slow the gate. Going forward, when someone moves fast, let that be data, not flattery. Love that is real does not need to rush. Connection that is genuine does not need to be manufactured at speed. The next time someone seems to understand you too perfectly, too quickly, be curious about that instead of just grateful. Step 4, rebuild your identity outside the story they told about you. Because here is something that rarely gets talked about. After a relationship like this, many people lose not just the person, they lose themselves. Because so much of who they became inside that relationship was shaped by someone else's narrative. Rebuilding means finding your own voice again. Your own values. Your own version of what love looks and feels like when it's real. You don't stop trusting water after you nearly drown. You learn how to swim. Here is what I want to leave you with. Machiavelli did not write The Prince to create monsters. He wrote it so that good people would stop being surprised by them. And right now, having watched this far, you are no longer the same person who pressed play at the beginning. You know something now that most people around you will never know. You understand how the trap is built. You recognize the signs. You have a framework for what happened to you, or what could happen to you, in a way that most people never get. That knowledge is not a burden. It is freedom. It doesn't mean you close your heart. It doesn't mean you look at every person with suspicion. It means you walk through the world with your eyes fully open. It means you can give love freely, while also trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. It means the people who seek to use you will find, this time, that you are not an easy door to open. If this video resonated with you, if something in it reflected your own experience, leave a comment below. Tell us what hit hardest. Because you are not alone in this. And this community was built for people who are ready to see clearly. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who needs it. Because awareness is the one thing no one can take from you once you have it. The trap only works in the dark. Now you've turned on the light.